Did you know there are underground tunnels that go from the Madison Square Garden in the United States of America to Buckingham Palace in the United Kingdom? I'll give you guys a quick second to digest. Now listen, welcome to the first part of a new series that I'm not sure what I want to call it just yet, but there'll be a playlist with all of the videos in there in the description box. Also, there's an introduction video. But it's all about understanding the opponent, okay? Because we say in this channel over here on the winning team, our whole ethos is if life's a game, let's play to win. And that life is a game. So if life is a game, we're on the winning team. We must understand our opponent, because just because they are a loser does not mean that they are currently losing. And I want to equip us to understand exactly how everything that's happening in the world and in history is all working together to where we're at right now. So today we're going to be talking about the underground tunnels. Like I said, if you want to see the rest of the intro, I highly recommend. It's in the description box in the playlist. Other than that, let's talk the underground tunnels between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. Now, as somebody who's recently flown between the two, I was really thinking about how vast it is, the distance, right? Because I know we say it's across the pond, but it's really a lot more than just a pond between the US and the UK. And what I wanted to, there's so many things to highlight here. So I'm just going to take you guys on the journey of how I got to, why I think the royal family is involved, basically. So where we're going with this is why I believe the royal family is involved with child trafficking, child sacrificing, etc. Why I believe they're in cahoots with all this stuff that's going on in Hollywood. That's where this video is going. To start off with, I'll say this. In the United Kingdom at the moment and recently, with all the stuff that's gone on, especially since Queen Elizabeth, and she's going to be a very interesting character that comes up in a minute. Since Queen Elizabeth passed away, there have been some really interesting things that have gone on in the UK media. Now, what I didn't know, but I discovered thanks to you lovely folks at the winning team who are outside of the UK, is that our media is so much more even more censored than other media. So there's things that are being told to you guys in other places that we are not getting to see on our own media. Like we find out, some of us who have a lot of very international life experience find out through other channels. One of the things, however, that has made it to the news over here is about Kate and William. So we'll start with William. William, of course, now is next in line to be king and is under, scrutiny, of course, because there's a reputation to behold, yada, yada, yada. We're going to come back to Charles as well, because Charles, there's a lot to unpack here when it comes to the royal family element of this whole situation and why I believe they're involved. I'm just painting the picture for you guys. All of this, I know all of this stuff I'm saying is true, at least I know that it's true, like as in, I know that it's true, but I have to paint the picture for you guys. So that's why I explain these things in a long way. It's not because I just like to waffle, but it's because I have to convince you, because there's an enemy that's trying to convince you of a different narrative or has already convinced you of a different one. So anyway, so there's one thing that's been highlighted about William and Kate recently. First of all, that William at a few times has looked like he's been under the influence. And even there's been rumors of Kate, the reason why she's hidden is because she's been having issues with drugs, abusing drugs, right? I find that really fascinating, because we know that drug use is a huge part of this trafficking situation, or this rather abuse of children, the child sacrifice malarkey that goes on in the underground tunnels. And there's a very simple reason, I believe, for that. Because in order to get people, as we are, as even the Bible would say, we are sober mind. We're in a sober minded state. The Bible tells us to be sober minded. So as I am right now, I'm sober minded, right? And my thoughts are clear. I can make my own decisions. There's certain things that if I was under the influence of, I don't know, a drug or alcohol or something, I might make a different decision, right? I might make a different decision. And also, I'll say this. I believe that drugs are used to kind of like heighten the sense of whatever's inside of you, right? So if there's something that's you might be able to normally suppress, and honestly, the more you suppress it, the better. The more you keep engaging with something that you're trying to suppress, obviously, the less easy it is to suppress it. Also, the more drugged you are, it is to get you to do something you don't want to do. So that's why there's this trend that people have with people in the entertainment industry where they're like, oh, why are they always on drugs? Why are they always doing this? Like they all lose their way. I don't agree that that's what's happening. I believe that they get put onto these things, and these things are used in order to take advantage of them and to get them into these situations, such as doing things, in these parties and doing all sorts. So then, the enemy can have something to blackmail them with. The enemy can get them to do things to blackmail them with. Because now, of course, if they now try to speak up about something, this is why when people are asking for justice, I'm like, you don't understand that there's a bigger game being played here, right? So you saying, oh, we just need to, why didn't people stand up? Why didn't people show up? There's like drugs, I believe, are massively used as a tool, not just to, obviously, we all know about like the date rape drug and all that kind of thing, but not just for people to do things to others, but to get others to do things. So I believe that, these rumors of these two could absolutely be true, because I believe now that Kate has disappeared, there's been a lot of poor media coverage and explanations. In fact, there's been some really poorly made AI looking images trying to prove that Kate is talking to us and that she's still alive and yada, yada, yada. And I don't believe that she is. I believe that both Kate and Diana were either one of two things. Either one, they were both sacrificed in order for the king of which that they are, in order for the king to take his position. Because as I've said to you guys, the devil, the enemy, he does not have any power. He has to siphon all his power from us. That's why when the Bible says that Jesus died, when we think of Jesus' blood and it being infinite and enough to pay for everything, what that means is an infinite power. God, when he made us and he made us from the dirt, right? You can't just go and make another human from the dirt. The fact is that God breathed life into us, and that's how we have life. And that's why the other gods, the other team, if they want power, they have to go and siphon it off of where God gave it from. So that's why, there's all of this killing of humans, killing of children, because the life force, the thing that is life itself that creates power, came from God. So this is why I'm trying to say to you guys is why these sacrifices and things have to happen, because in order to make things shift, because we got to think with our spiritual brains here, guys. This is what's missing. What is missing with all the truth telling that's going on and all what everybody else has to say about all of this stuff is people are not looking at this from a spiritual level. And that's exactly what the enemy wants, because he knows that's the bit that matters. Everything else, if you know everything else, it doesn't really make a difference, right? And so that's why I'm making this series. So I believe that they were both, because for me, it was giving generational, like, development. Like his dad has a woman. She passes away, from the incident. Very well-loved woman. William, very well-loved woman, passes away. Why do I think that makes sense? It explains the drug use. It explains all of that. And I'll tell you why I even came to think about all of this, because I'm tying all these little pieces together. So just keep going with me. I know we're not quite there yet. We're going to get there. So the whole reason I started to even question the royal family, well, first of all, it started when I was quite young. I remember one of my parents telling me, Prince Charles is a Freemason. And Freemasonry is also in my family, by the way. So I have people in my family who either were. Rest in peace to my grandfather, was a Freemason, and also another person who I'm not going to mention because, out of respect for them, but went to one of these Freemasonry schools in my family, my own family. This is what I'm saying. My family is the gift that keeps on giving, I swear. So Prince Charles was a Freemason, right? Prince Charles was a Freemason. And ever since I knew that detail since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I started looking into this Illuminati Freemasonry stuff when I was 12, by the way, guys. That's why I say a lot of the stuff I say I've been knowing for a long time. And the only reason I stopped is because somebody was telling me like, oh, you shouldn't be worrying too much about that at your age. But I was so fascinated. I wish they hadn't, because honestly, it didn't stress me. Of all the things that I've been through, that was literally one of the least of all the things I've ever been through that stressed me out at the age of 12. But anyway, so from then I already had it in my head like, okay, because I knew what I knew about Freemasons at that point, and I knew what I knew about the Illuminati at that point. So I was kind of like, right, because the whole concept, Illuminati, illuminate, Lucifer, light, you get the gist, got it. So I always kept that in the back of my mind, and I always felt like with Charles, throughout the years, throughout my whole life, I felt like he was in a position where he was kind of waiting to step in to do his part of the game, because one day he was going to be king. I almost got this idea from him, like, and this is just a discernment type of thing. I always had this like feeling that Charles is like making all these promises to all these buddies. He's doing all this stuff with all these people, and one day he's going to step into the position in which he's going to be able to essentially make whatever he's promises to his buddies, to help with the overall cause. Because like I said, remember, there's only 2 teams here. So let's just run with that theme. That's going to be the running theme. There's only 2 teams here, right? So me and Charles are not on the same team. I'll just start with saying that. So, so we got all of that. So I had that in the back of my mind. I had in my mind also the fact that, okay, yeah, he's going to have to, I know what these people are doing. These people are trying to create their own, we've had the New World Order, the New World this, all of that stuff that people are talking about. Yeah, it's happening, right? And it's happening. I'm going to explain in this series why it's happening. I forgot to mention that this also ties in with the end times and how the opponent is planning towards the end times. And that's actually what all of this is planning towards, and why all of these things are happening in all of these industries. So you guys are just going to have to watch the series to understand. So I always had that feeling that one day he was going to step into the position where he would be, show himself to do what he needs to do. So right now, he is in the position. So let's think about this. Queen Elizabeth is queen. Charles is next in. He's a Diana. Diana dies. Charles becomes king. William becomes next in line. Kate Middleton, I believe, is dead. That's what I believe, okay? And that might sound insane, but I'll tell you why I even suspected the royal family even more. So when I recorded the series that you guys would have seen already, which was the one titled Child Trafficking, the World's Biggest Business That Everybody's In On, something like that, which I did a couple of years ago, I mentioned in there, go and watch it, it's really good. And I mentioned in that series how the trafficking works from the most basic level, like from the average person you see on the side of the road, how they work all the way up into the government, into the highest levels. And through the schools, through the police departments, through the judicial system, how it works through the whole thing, it's all there if you want to understand. So one of the things, that series was based off of an interview that Ali Carter, who a lot of people are talking about now, nobody wanted to talk about her before, and she wasn't even available to be talked about on places like YouTube at the time, because I was on these other websites for these truth seekers like to talk about things. She claimed to see certain people in these underground tunnels, and she claimed that she used to be traveled around in these underground tunnels around the United States. And when I say around the United States, I mean like from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. She claimed she was taken from like Madison Square Garden in these underground tunnels all the way through to Buckingham Palace. Now, I believe this, and I'll tell you why, because historically speaking, underground tunnels has always been a form of something that we have done as a society. Now, a lot of the stuff I'm telling you guys, it's all a part of this hidden history that has been tried to be dismantled and hidden from us, so that we don't understand the greater plan of what's going on. There are even places in the world, I can't remember what country it was in. There's a country where they found old tunnels that had been built by even Christians who were trying to protect them, hide away from a particular enemy of theirs. Like, underground tunnels has been a big, huge thing that has been discovered and has been used. Obviously, again, things to do like with mining and also things like that as well. Sometimes as a form of protection, but we'll get into that all more, because the underground tunnels big reveal point is going to come towards the end of the series, probably the last video. So she states this, but what she stated, not just the Buckingham Palace element that threw me, but it was that she specifically said that she saw Queen Elizabeth underneath in these tunnels, okay? And that Queen Elizabeth used to ask her to call her Lilibet. Now, this to me is insane, because this was a few years ago, but then after that, what do we all know? That the Queen, before she died, one of her great grandchildren called her Lilibet. So what I think has gone on in the royal family, personally, based on just that, and also there's a lot more. We've got the red painting of King Charles. We've got the fact that the monarchy in this country, whoever is king or queen, is the head of the Church of England, right? Now, obviously, how did it become the Church of England from being Catholic prior? Courtesy of none other than, obviously, King Henry VIII, who changed the laws because he wanted to get a divorce. We were all taught the story of King Henry VIII and all of his 6 different wives and whatnot as part of this education system over here. But here's the thing about the monarchy. Church and state, and Catholicism and the origins of the Catholic Church that we need to consider. When the Catholic Church was founded initially in Rome, the first Roman Catholic Church, after Jesus' passing. So Jesus has passed, and Jesus has said, you guys go and do what I'm asking you to do. Go out there and feed the people. Go out there and lead the people in the ways in which I've taught you. You be a representative of me, and me being the personification of the scriptures, me being the word made flesh, the law made flesh. Now you know what it actually meant. Now you know what you're supposed to do. Go out there and do what you got to do. What happened was the people started to almost rank the different apostles, Paul, Peter, Luke, all these different, John, all these different disciples, the apostles. They started to rank them as to who they thought was more or closer or less close to God. This had nothing to do with what God had asked us to do, because we know what God asked us to do because it's in the Bible. So what ended up happening is they started to prioritize who they thought was the most high level of the most valuable of the disciples, and almost more anointed, if you will. And that's how the Pope system was founded, because Pope literally means father, right? Because it was like, you're the utmost one, so you're the one who has the say above all. And it's funny because prior to that was never Jesus's recommendation. In fact, even priesthood, Jesus is the final priest and Jesus is not dead. So actually priesthood even isn't a thing. It's not even supposed to be a thing. That was supposed to have been left behind. I just want to say also that just because all of these things I'm saying, all these truth bombs, doesn't mean that I'm saying this from the perspective of understanding what the opponent's thinking. Obviously, us as the individual people that are going to the churches and stuff, I'm not trying to blame them and say that, oh my gosh, you're an idiot or something because you're being taken advantage of. I don't believe that just because, people are doing things not in the way that God said it should be done, that God can't still, I know that God still does things through whatever vessels he needs to. Okay. So I just want to say that. But anyways, so the Catholic Church, so this whole Pope system ends up happening because, what was I saying? Yeah, the people are seeing him in a more high esteem. Oh, yeah, Jesus being the final priest. So we're not even supposed to have priests. Which again, linking in with the priests, what are priests unfortunately known for? Violating young boys. What is also the entertainment industry, this Diddy situation and whatnot that we've now been talking about, violating what? Young boys. Okay, you see how there's actually a lot of overlaps. We've got the drug overlaps, we've got the young boy violation overlaps, we've got the, a lot of things to come. So then eventually, I believe it was Saint Peter, because they believed whoever was the direct descendant of Saint Peter or something, I don't know, but they started to pick popes, and it wasn't based on anything to do with looking at the scriptures and the godliness. The First Timothy 2s, where it talks about the office of an overseer. And so basically, what happened is the popes now. So we have our pope, our first pope or whatever, who's like the upper. If we all have to make a decision, it's going to be him kind of character. Even though God wanted it to be like a group eldership situation, but they all decided, as we all do as humans, we always idolize, we always create a god, our own gods for ourselves, as opposed to just keeping God in his position. I wonder if that's why he said, you shall have no other gods before me, as his very first commandment. But anyway, the Pope is founded, but the Pope is not founded on good terms. The whole idea is, well, if I'm the Pope makes a deal with whatever's the current emperor. If the Pope acknowledges the emperor, the people trust the emperor because they see him as some kind of god figure, and then the emperor backs up the Pope. So if the Pope can do whatever he wants to do, because the emperor is going to use his army and his resources to resist the Pope's own people if they try to come up against him, to protect the Pope's position. So both of them are trying to protect each other's position. The Pope is giving, because everybody sees him as a god, is giving his permission over to saying, yep, I agree with this emperor. And then the people trust in that emperor. The emperor can have the people on his side. The emperor is defending the Pope so the Pope can maintain his position. And that is how we founded the Catholic Church, everybody. So fast forward, we then have Constantine the Great at some point, who everybody says became Christian. And I don't necessarily say I completely agree with that. I believe that he took advantage of the opportunity to claim that, to do something for the Christians, because of course the easiest way to get somebody to trust you and to control them is to meet them at their point of need in that moment of which the Christians are being persecuted. Then he did that. He stopped the persecution, became a Christian himself. And again, he's the reason why we have church on a Sunday, even though, right, because he was trying to I believe this was all a plot just to stabilize Constantinople. But, he did all of this in order to, he's the reason why church isn't on Sunday now, even though in the Bible, the Sabbath is from sunset, just before sunset on a Friday in our current week's calendar, to sunset on Saturday. He's the one who started the Sunday thing, right? And he's also the one who started this concept of the marrying between church and state. Fast forward, the British monarchy. You get it. Fast forward Catholicism. Fast forward Church of England. Okay, so what I'm trying to picture to you is that this whole chain of what happened through the Catholic Church and coming into the monarchy, which again, the monarchy being the head of the Church of England, for me is insanity, particularly because England and King Charles right now is still king of I don't know how many billion people in the world. I can't remember. I talked about it in a video, right? This is why you guys should just watch all the videos and just stay tuned, and you should have just really been here, because I talk about things. I can't keep bringing everything up, but he's king of a lot. So he has a big power. Whoever is king or queen of this country has a lot of power as far as whatever the plans are of the opponent. So that in combination with all this stuff going on with William and Kate, in combination with Queen Elizabeth, Lilibet, and how that's what Ali Carter had said years. And when Ali Carter had said this was before these whole news stories in this country about her great grandchild calling her Lilibet came up. Because that was what was insane. When I heard it, it horrified me. I was like, the heck? And let's also talk about one other thing. Who has been seen many a time at a Diddy party? None other than Prince Harry. So even with the Prince Harry storyline, I really do feel, and I do believe that him and this whole Meghan Markle, yada, 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 and them leaving the royal family and all of this and this and this, I actually believe this is all one big play once again towards us. I believe Harry was obviously never going to be king, so it didn't really matter. I do believe that they were genuinely concerned, the royal family, about Meghan Markle, but less because of her race, more so because of protecting their little families, because these guys all know what they're doing. Everything that's being done in the world is being done by a very, very small group of people, right? Who are controlling everything on the opponent's side. The rest of everybody else is just a pawn. So that's where you are. If you don't identify currently as a winner or a loser, you're currently a pawn, right? And so for me, this Meghan Markle situation, we had the wrong idea. A lot of people had the wrong idea. It was never about her race. It was that they had to make sure that her and how far away she is from the little group of people, because we all know, all like England, France, and what's the other one? England, France, and Germany, and all these countries. England, France, and why am I forgetting? There's England, France, and Germany. These are all basically the same kind of group, the same people, and the same little group of people. And that's why you have Mary, Queen of Scots. That's why you have all these little kings and queens, all in this little, they're all basically the same people, and they're all trying to keep the same amount of power in the same families. That's why they have all the incest and all of that, because they need to keep everybody else out. They can't afford to have anybody else come in, because the whole purposes of the enemy's plan is about this small group of people that he is, we'll come to what that is about. So all of that is what led me to definitely believe that these underground tunnels, that first of all, the royal family is almost definitely in on it. Not just that, but also the fact, just of the fact of their success, the things that they have. Like I said, in this life, you succeed one way or another. Your life, you might feel like you're always running an uphill battle. That's because you're not out here sacrificing. In places like, Africa, I can tell you from the places I come from, I've told you guys this already, how even I was a sacrifice. Oh, we're starting with this already. How even I was a sacrifice. People, the average individual does actually sacrifice real life humans. They do sacrifice humans. It is very common. In fact, in the countries where I come from, I did a whole video, in one of my videos, I mentioned it. The president actually had to do a whole, has had to create a whole system where apparently now 30% of this is in Zimbabwe, 30% of the prisoners who are now in prison, it's because they were trying to sacrifice kids. I read literal studies of how people are sacrificing kids for money, fertility, and things like that. And they're saying the reason they're doing it is because it is working. And let me tell you what else they're doing also over there at the same time. These same people doing sacrifices, as in there's people that go and get the bodies and just pick up people and or children off the road. This is happening as we speak, as you're watching this video. They pick up people and then they immediately castrate them or take whatever parts that they need. Then they take them to the witch doctors, and then the witch doctors who've instructed them, and the witch doctors have instructed them based on the customer who's come to ask. And here's the kicker, right? Is that it's also happening with people who are in the church and knowingly going to church. So this is what I'm trying to say to you guys about how it all links in together. It's all the same thing. They're in the church doing these sacrifices, just like how, like I said, the Church of England, the king is the head of the Church of England. That doesn't mean that they're not doing these things, right? And again, going back, how did we even get to that? Like I said, Constantine the Great, the marriage between church and state. So that's what I'm saying. It all links in together and it's all the same thing. I've just mentioned 3 completely different places and 3 completely different continents, right? And we're seeing similar things. You see what I'm saying? And how it all goes together. In fact, just to put the final nail in the coffin, if you will, as I said to you, you guys can check out, I've got a playlist, it's called Videos You Need to Watch. There's a video about a high-level witch in there who describes how him coming from Africa was told by his higher ups as a warlock, I believe he would refer to himself as, to go and to disrupt what some Christian people were doing. And what he had to do once he had done, do you know where he was supposed to go once he finished and he was about to get on the flight to get to? Rome. To go to Rome, right? Because of course the Vatican is still its own place and its own whatever. What he didn't know, which he found out after the fact, is that they weren't even planning, even though he'd successfully completed the mission and should have been given all this money and whatever, they weren't even planning to actually give him the money. They were planning to chop up his body for parts so they could use the power that he had stored from doing all the demonic behavior he'd been doing as a warlock. This is in Rome. So I just paint, hopefully you guys are understanding the purposes of why I'm making this series now. And I've painted the picture to you of how insane these things are. It all sounds crazy when you look at it from one bit of it, the coin, or one little bit. But when you actually put it all together in one thing, it kind of makes sense. Am I wrong? It kind of makes sense, and it's kind of crazy. And the only reason that you don't believe this stuff, or this stuff isn't talked about, because you might be wondering that, is because, of course, the only thing that the enemy has to hide is the real truth. A half-truth, a mid-truth, a this truth, a your truth, a my truth, it doesn't matter. We can all have those truths. The one thing that he cannot allow for us to know is the truth, because then why? We can beat him at the game. I need us to understand this. So this is going to be the first video of the series. I'm not even sure where I'm going to go for the next part 2. What are we going to do in part 2? Hold on. So for part 2, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the science element, because something that nobody's talking about is the fact that there are also scientists in these underground tunnels. And there's a lot to be talking about in terms of genetic engineering, how far we've come, what biohacking is, which is quite literally being able to change your DNA as a live individual. There are 3-parent children being created. There are chimeras and all sorts of things being done. And I'm going to talk about why there's a significance of that to do with the underground tunnels and why certain things have to be done under there, because no one seems to be talking about the fact that there are scientists in these underground tunnels and what exactly they are doing. Because again, one of the questions I had is, what about the young girls in these underground tunnels? What are we doing with them? Because you guys are going to see. So buckle up and stay tuned for part 2, because again, I'm going to show you how it's all linked together, and this picture's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So anyways, you guys, I'll see you in part 2. If life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.